I don't think enough folks put emphasis that your career is your own. You got to own it. You could have the greatest mentors, the greatest training system, training plan, but you need to have that kind of self drive and self start.
GovCon has a language of its own. Acronyms, compliance, contracting. And when you're new, well, it can feel a little bit like alphabet soup.
And let's be real, no one hands you a decoder ring. We're your hosts, Amanda Ziada and Camille Tudi, and we're here to get real about how people actually break in, level up, and lead in government contracting.
Because not everyone grows up dreaming about government contracts. Some people, however, are born with a type A personality, an inherent interest in leadership, and a fearless drive.
That briefly describes our next guest foundation. She has over 2 decades of experience in finance, contracts, management, you name it.
But she didn't always have the answers. In fact, she learned early on in her career that if you don't know what you're supposed to do, just ask before you mess up.
Or learn from it, like our guest did. She didn't succeed in a high-pressure, high-stakes field without a few hiccups.
That's right. So let's get into it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rookies to Rockstars, a short series where we ask bold, smart people one thing. What do you know now that you wish someone had told you at the start?
Today's guest is Amy Foy, Vice President for Contracts and Supply Chain at Nightwing. Thanks for being here, Amy. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So just a bit of background. Amy got her start in finance and has since served in contract operations and management roles, led major transformation efforts, overseen high-stakes international and domestic customer and supplier-related business, and helped advance national security priorities across the defense and intelligence industries.
So that's over 20 years of experience in a complex
Don't remind me.
That's experience, Amy. Experience. That's always good.
Yeah.
Contracts and supply chain put you truly in the weeds of processes from start to finish. So let's start with the heart of the series. What's one piece of advice that you wish someone had given you at the very beginning of your career?
I think the number one thing as I look back, so I started in the industry right out of college. I just applied because there was an online application, to be honest. I mean, I had done an internship with a defense contractor. It was easy. I could submit my resume and continue on with my senior year of college. And I started a leadership development program at the prior company I worked for. They had leadership development programs, which are fantastic opportunities. They provide a very structured way to start in your career. I had 2 one-year rotations. I had set training. But what I wish I'd realized is that was great. And it was a great transition. But post-program, I owned my career. There was no program or no leadership development structure, organization that was going to navigate my career. And one of the biggest attrition rates we had at that company was those coming right off the program. And I think one of the biggest things is that folks don't realize your career is your own. You got to own it. You have to come up with, as I call it, your mood board, what you want to achieve and when you want to achieve it and what it looks like. And obviously that's different at different points at your life, which I think is also a key fact is, what I wanted at 22 is a lot different than I want now. I think I realized that I was fortunate to have really good advocates and mentors when I came off the program, and they helped me identify additional programs I should do, additional training opportunities. So what I ended up doing was really plotting kind of my own career and what I wanted to do. But more importantly, the heart of that was staying close to my family and being here in Massachusetts and being able to still have my personal life. But I don't think enough folks put emphasis that your career is your own. You got to own it. You could have the greatest mentors, the greatest training system, training plan, but you need to have that kind of self-drive and self-start and be your number one advocate. Because if you're not an advocate for yourself and put yourself first, no one else is going to be.
I like that you brought up the balance too, because I think at a young age after college, you're so focused on the grind. So incorporating that into your decision-making process is tough at that age, but also important. So
I think not only the grind, but also you're graduating with your peers, you're kind of keeping up on what they're doing. And I think it's important to be competitive, but more importantly, be competitive with yourself. Like your success is measured against what you do and not what other individuals do. And I think as a type A person, someone who has always put a lot of pressure on themselves, I remember that transition as well. Not being caught up on what my peers, not only in my company, were doing, but also my peers from college, my peers from high school. trying to not measure myself against them, but measure myself against what I wanted to do. It's tough. I mean, still, I think finally I've reached that, but it really took a long time, especially as we put so much pressure that you continually escalate up. But that's not always the one path you should do. You can always accelerate sideways, and take different roles. And so I think it's not only knowing I own my career, but that my measurement of success was my own and not compared to anyone else's.
So, Amy, whether it was leading a transformation effort or negotiating under pressure, what mindset helped you navigate your first high stakes challenge?
All of my success I kind of attribute to my parents and their belief and confidence in me, but also their ability to put things in perspective. They never kind of took anything too serious. And not that they didn't take things seriously and expect that I'd get things done. But I think it's having a positive outlook on things, and that as long as you have a plan and you try to proactively address it, it will be resolved. And also, I think early in your career, those small, tiny mistakes seem so big. In reality, they mean nothing. Not that you think that that if you answer the question the wrong way, you answer the email the wrong way, you forget something in a presentation, it's the biggest deal. But in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that important. And so I think it's the mindset was being positive, but keeping things in perspective and really trying to have a results-oriented mindset, saying you'll work through this, but actually coming up with that plan, having actions, engaging the right people. And I think it's also tied to like something I've had to learn the way is I can't do it all myself. I'm only one person. And I think for a lot of us, we've gotten so used to like being able to do stuff ourselves and own it, creative great. But as you scale it in a company, that's not feasible anymore, both in your personal life and in your professional life. And so I think just being positive, keeping things in perspective and pulling in the right people really helps you work through challenges. But I think a lot of times people think asking for help is a sign of weakness, when I've had to learn that it's a sign of strength. Like I remember having that kind of early career, go, go, go. I had no limitations on when I had to be home. I could work weekends. And then I had my daughter, which hands down, my kids are my proudest accomplishment. But I remember coming back from maternity leave, and I was like so afraid to leave the office to get her. And I look back at myself and I'm like, that is ridiculous. But I just think I realized that it was okay. I didn't have to be at every meeting at every time. And that as long as I got my job done, continue to perform, that was important. But more importantly, be present for my family too. But it takes times. And, I think some days I laugh because, sometimes I feel like a failure, and other days I feel like a rock star, and that feeling never goes away. And it's just trying to reflect back on what you did good and be proud of the things you've done and ensure you know what matters to you.
You said you were a type A personality, which
Still am. I relaxed a little.
so how do you, when you have that, and I can relate to that as well, but what do you think has shaped that side of you? Like your family, or is it that something that, you just had an inner drive, or where did that come from?
I think knowing my daughter, who is like me, but worse, I think I was born this way, but I also think my parents, like my dad never missed one of my games. So I think I always, despite having a busy career in finance, I mean, he was the guy running in last minute, but I always, before the whistle blew, would look up and see him there. My mom was a nurse. She worked nights so she could be. So I think I wanted to do well for my parents. But I think where my type A has evolved is when I became a parent. I realized that I wanted to be the same engaged parent that my parents were. I think my children have made my type A personality better and more open to not doing everything myself and more about that. You go back and you look at the different phases of yourself and how you evolve and change. And I think having them was the best thing I could have ever done, because it taught me that I still can be driven. I still can want things for myself, for my family, but that their happiness and being able to have a better balance. And trust me, there's days where it is not balanced, and there's days that it's kind of a hot mess. But that's where I'm fortunate to have a fantastic team who I work with. They are hands down one of the best in the industry, who just I think they walk around with like just to catch me when I fall. But I also have a fantastic team of home, my family, my sitter, and I think that's where you, as a type A, you realize you have to rely on others, and it's okay to do that. And it's not not a sign of weakness, but it took many tries. And I think I still, to this day, need to learn and need to just refocus. And I think when they walk through the door at home every day, that helps put in perspective and, seeing their faces and their smiles and the notes they write when they're happy about me. Don't trust me, they give me hell. But my kids really helped drive my career definitely in the last 12 years and reprioritize what's important to me. And not that it wasn't before, but just helped me just put things in perspective, which I think my parents always did, but they've reaffirmed that.
So, with that context, what does success to you personally look like these days?
So a lot different than when I met at 22. For me, what matters is that I'm a good mom, a good daughter, and that my kids are happy. And that at work, I'm a good leader, I'm a good coworker, I'm a good advocate, and that my team feels supported by me. Success now is about my kids and my team's success and not about mine as an individual.
You had mentioned making mistakes and how early on they seemed so scary and so big, but today looking back, they're not, or you needed them. Was there a mistake that really taught you something that you needed to know or helped you grow in this field?
Oh God, I made so many mistakes. I still make mistakes. When I first started, I started great. Like I said, out of college, I know there's a school for contracts. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, still to this day, like 20 years later, my mom still says, "Oh, are you in finance? Are you in compliance?" Or, like, it's not an niche field because it applies to all industries, but it's really still like not a lot of folks know what you do. And it's funny trying to explain it to my kids. They're like, "Wait, what? Like, you're on Zooms all day and you're like traveling to DC. Like, that's what they think I do." Like, but for me, like that first mistake, like I remember, so I started working US government and spares and repairs proposals, like high activity. And I remember I had no training. I thought I was doing a good thing. I filed all these this is back in the days of paper files. So I'm totally aging myself. But I took all these files and I loaded all these closed contracts and I messed everything up. And I just remember like the person who was managing me, or she was kind of she came in, she's like, "You idiot, you can't do that." And I just was like, "What?" From my perspective, I thought what I did was great. And that, I think for me, the takeaway from was like, ask. I honestly, like, if you don't know what you're supposed to do, it's okay to ask. And we have a bunch of interns who just started and we did a lunch and learn and going around, and don't suffer in silence. Like, don't be afraid to ask. Like, I think you're so afraid that you're supposed to know everything at all times. And even now, like, I think there's still that pressure folks feel that they need to know everything about everything within their purview, but that's not humanly possible. And it's okay to ask for context clarification. And I try to push that with my team. And I try to push it with young individuals is don't suffer in silence. And I know that's kind of like a cliche statement, but ask for help, ask for clarification, because in the grand scheme of things, it'll be better. But I was afraid to ask because I was like, okay, she told me to file well, and I'm just going to execute. So, and I still think that's a challenge, especially in today's day. Like, everyone has pushed their limits. Folks are so busy. Folks just sometimes execute so quickly, they don't pause and think. And I am the number one offender of that because I'm so results oriented that I don't stop and pause. And so it's remembering to stop and pause and think about what we're doing. And I see it a lot now because folks are so focused on that deliverable and getting it done and moving on to the next task because their to-do list is a mile long. Sometimes they don't pause and think. And I think it's just taking the time to pause and think. And I have to remind myself that every day. But I think it's so valuable at times that, speed is important, but also thinking about what you're doing is just as important.
So, what do you think that the next generation needs to unlearn then?
They need to unlearn that you can't solve everything via electronic communication.
Yes.
That you actually have to pick up the phone, have relationships. With us becoming Nightwing, it's been an incredible opportunity. We've learned so much about standing up a new company and divesting from a prior company and really continue to maintain business continuity, but ensure we're transforming. And it's a lot of balls to juggle. You want to focus on the customer, you want to execute the business, and you want to transform and deliver on the value you can as a standalone company. It's exciting, but I think just trying to manage that all, in the past 2 years, we are operating at a very high level, but we're also very transactional in the weeds. So we've absorbed a lot of those support functions we got from our prior company. So we are not only leading strategic vision, but we're transactional at the same time. And so we're working through simple stuff as like shipment delays. And, I had this most recent incident where we had a major customer milestone. The shipment was delayed. And I called my folks and they're like, well, the tracking says this. And I'm like, that's great, but I don't trust my Amazon tracking. You know what I mean? Like, and so I'm like, did you pick up the phone and call? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, pick up the phone and talk to a person. A live status on a UPS or FedEx is fantastic, but that doesn't mean it's reality. Like, make contact. There's been so often as we're working through these is that I think the next generation is so used to communicating via electronic means and not actually having verbal communication, in-person communication, that the relationships aren't where they should be. And at the end of the day, what gets things done are relationships and the ability to build those and solve. So, and I also think like that ties with, the being in the office thing. I wouldn't have got to where I didn't if I wasn't in the office. And I get the benefits of being remote and the flexibility. And I think that's important for employees, no matter if you have kids, no kids, what phase in life. Like, flexibility is important, but it's not just, you're not entitled, you have to earn it too. But I think that face-to-face and verbal and building the relationships is so important, and you can't hide behind your phone or your computer, especially when it comes to resolving issues or resolving them quickly. It's your ability to actually use your relationships and get it done.
Yeah, Amanda and I are older than we look, and we're also journalists, so we have spent a lot of many, many, many hours on the phone. And I think when you are early in your career, you need to be around people. I mean, you have to learn from people, you have to learn what to do, and you just have to be in that environment. So working remotely when you are, 20, 21, I don't think it's the best idea, even though I'm a huge advocate for remote work. I mean, I'm calling it from Asia right now. So, but yeah, it makes sense.
I totally agree. I can't imagine having started my career remotely. And I know that's so common right now. And I love working remotely, but I just can't imagine not having that experience or, that in-person network.
Regret all those first suits you had to get for interviews.
Yeah. Everyone's shopping at the same stores.
I mean, trust me, I still have the closet, but I was very fortunate to have a lot of people who were my advocates, and it was building the relationships just in the hallway talk, or just being able to tag along to a meeting with them. I learned the most because I saw ways to not insert myself, but to help those above me out, whether it's sitting in a meeting, taking meeting minutes, helping go pick up the customer. And some of it's administrative tasks. And I know, there's a perception on that. But what I saw was ways I could help the people I worked with and also get visibility to different exposure. And I think the fact that I did it well, is when they actually believed in me and gave me more opportunities. And it was all in person. It was so valuable. And I can't imagine where my career would go if I started it sitting in an office part of my bedroom or, studio. And really, I think I honestly wouldn't have learned a lot of the things, but more importantly, I wouldn't have made the relationships I did.
I actually wanted to ask, back in the day, what opened most doors for you? But it is that being proactive and learning how to kind of manage up, right? And foreseeing your bosses or your superiors' needs before they even realize, and being there in person helps to do that as well.
I think it's anticipating their needs, being there, but I also think it's not only up, it's sideways. Like, some of the people I still talk to this day are not only my prior bosses, but my peers. I'm fortunate to have a few really good girlfriends who, we met at work, and we still to this day, I talk to them multiple times a week. I bounce ideas off of not only, what you're going through in life at this phase, but also what your, work things. And I think a lot of folks focus on the shiny objects all the time. As I laugh, when we used to have those leadership development events, post-program, I'd participate, and I called it kind of like kindergarten soccer, where the soccer ball were the VPs and they just run to them and not actually spread out. And really, your best advocates aren't always ones with the most impressive title. It's the person who can give you opportunities, who might be a few levels down, but has the bandwidth to actually mentor you or actually engage. And so it's spreading it out to folks who actually can help you. Not that you shouldn't have the relationships with those above and those help, but I think having a well-rounded and a very diverse set of folks in your network who can offer you different things and different opportunities. And I think it's the ones that you least expect will be the most valuable.
So at this point in your career, you're still operating of course, at a high level, but still evolving, of course. So how do you stay sharp and challenged and growing?
Some days I don't feel too sharp. I feel pretty dull lately, but
We're all
I think,
tired.
yeah, no, yeah. Like my son every day is like, "Are you tired?" I'm like, Why do you say that?" I think it's making sure you're transforming. And I know for me, I had been at the prior company for 20 years. I'd rotated. And the biggest kind of risk that I took was when I got the call about this role, I knew was at risk for being divested. And I'm not a risk taker. I have my to-do list. I have my plan. Like, I'm pretty boring, to be honest. And I knew I needed change. And so I think how you stay sharp is how do you grow, is you know yourself best. Like, I can give anyone career advice. They can give me career advice about what to do. You have to go with your gut. I know Amy Foy the best. God bless other folks don't know me that well, but I know what I want. I know what feels good to me and what I can do. And not that you shouldn't feel comfortable, but I was approached with this opportunity. I knew that it was potentially going to result in divestiture, but it was one of the best decisions I made because I acknowledge I was ready for a change. I acknowledge I need to do something different. And I acknowledge that this may be uncomfortable, but that for me, I was going with a great team of folks. I was bringing my whole team with me. So it was kind of the perfect risk I could take, trying something new with a strong team of folks. And I have no regrets because I've gone to meet the most fantastic people, work with such top performers, but try something new every day. And we're still, every day is a new challenge. And I think, we're in the process of about to do a purchasing system review. I mean, I'd never done that before. We novate all our contracts, and it's opened my eyes to different things at all different levels. And so I think it's growing me, but it's also making sure I'm growing my team. And so, I think for me at this level, it's making sure my skills are sharp, but more importantly, I'm developing, growing my team. I want them to succeed, and I want to have them in this role when they're ready to be. And so for me, it's helping them by being an advocate support and learning the stuff myself, but giving the opportunities to lead different things, whether it's standing up an indirect procurement, standing up business systems. I always say I'm kind of the mom to them now. It's really helping them grow and helping them develop and just being proud of them and celebrating their success and helping them through failures.
And Amy, before we go, we have to ask, at work or outside of work, have you ever ended a tough negotiation with kid, I'm from Boston, and did it work?
Probably not, but yeah.
Outside of work,
I ever probably end with a smile and a laugh. I'm Irish Catholic. We laugh. Life's too short not to laugh. Fortunately, my parents always instilled in me to have a good sense of humor. And so I probably have laughed my way through most parts of life. It's my coping mechanism. So I was fortunate to have two parents who believed in me. And I look at my daughter, and the proudest thing I can have is that she has the confidence she should have at her age. And I don't want to break that because as a woman, your confidence is everything. And it's important to have that. So if I can only be as good a parent as my parents have been in helping instill confidence that we have the right to have a seat at a table and be the girl from Boston who can speak up and isn't afraid to be who she is.
Yeah, I'm sure your mentees also really appreciate that. That's an important part of this industry and work in general. So that's great. Amy, thank you so much for being candid with us, for your clarity and sharing your lessons from the field. That's exactly what this series is all about. So I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. This has been really fun.
Thanks for listening to Rookies to Rockstars. GovCon doesn't come with a playbook, but these stories might be the next best thing. Follow the show, share it with someone still figuring it out, and connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you.